We got this one from Casey as well.
Hi, Casey.
Mentioned earlier that Gina from Dogwoods Resort was going to be joining us in studio, and Casey wrote in to say, I am a huge, not fat fan of the show for the last 23 years. I use many of your radvertisers, but by far Gina is my favorite.
Aww.
When Gina told us she would be on Rad, yes, Rob, I had to write and express my love and appreciation for Gina. She is the most altruistic human I know and deserves all the love of the Maggot Army. That is quite high praise.
Wow.
The most altruistic person that she knows. Welcome, Gina.
Thank you. That was very nice. Is that Casey with a K?
Yes.
Yes.
And an I.
Yes, I know her.
Spelled very strangely. So you took over Dogwoods how long ago?
It'll be 2 years in July.
Okay. And when we met to make sure that we were going to carry on our partnership, I got this wild story of how you wound up buying Dogwoods from fellow maggot Teresa. So you were a maggot prior to buying Dogwoods. Is that how you found Dogwoods originally?
That is how we found it.
All right, so tell me the story about when you went there.
The first time I dropped my dogs off there was the last time I worried about vacation. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
And I told my husband, wouldn't it be awesome to do something like this? If we could replicate it, buy it, sometime down the line. And then April of 2021, I pulled up to drop the dogs off for a weekend trip, and there was a for sale sign at the driveway. And my heart just dropped because I thought, what am I going to do with the dogs?
Yeah.
Exactly. All of our thoughts.
So asked Teresa, what's going on? And she said, I'm just ready to retire and love for someone to take this over. And went home, told my husband, guess what? Dogwoods is for sale.
And now at this time, what are you doing professionally?
Human resources and corporate administration.
So you've got a job.
Oh, yes.
And your husband has a job.
Oh, yes.
And
Wow.
of course, Dogwoods Resort is up where Brandon grew up in the Divide. So for a lot of us, it's a 30, 45 minute, depending on where you live, drive. And you lived whereabouts at the time?
Rancho Cordova.
Okay. So, yeah, so it was a good, 30-minute drive or so?
Oh, gosh, no.
Yeah.
Pushing an hour.
An hour, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you go to your husband and you say, Dogwoods is for sale, and what does he say?
He said, absolutely not. We are not prepared to do that right now. Maybe in 5 years. And I said, I know, that's crazy. And, I walked back down the hall I was working from home during COVID and went back down the hall and he says, well, wait, hold on.
Uh-oh.
And then I said, no, we can't do this. So we get in the car, we go on our road trip and we're talking about it. And we just said, no, we just can't do it. Next morning.
So you did talk it through? Like, did you talk it through, like, financially or, like, the broad picture of, we would have to move and live there? Okay, so we went through all of that. You still said no.
He said no. I said, I can't quit my job right now. That's just crazy talk. Next morning, we're staying with family. He's on his iPad, and he's looking. He says, come here, come look at this. So he's looking at the property, and he's asking me questions. What about this? What about that? And I said, oh, we're talking about this now. So I thought this was done. And my aunt, she says, what are you talking about? And we tell her, and she says, well, Gina, you've always wanted this place. I don't know why you guys are discussing it. Just do it. So we got back, talked to Teresa, and within 10 days, our offer was accepted. We sold our house. I put my notice in at my job.
Wow.
And Teresa and I put together a plan of transition, and
Now
I love that story.
And there's some amazing behind-the-scenes things going on, too. While all that's happening for Gina, Teresa had somebody lined up, somebody else, somebody different, and they were having problems putting it together, the financing. The dad was going to help, but I mean, she thought this. She was asking me. I hooked her up with my banker to try to help them, so it was like a done deal. And then it fell apart. And like it was right around that exact time. Like Teresa was like texting, like I'm getting a little desperate here because again it's 2021. It's the middle of COVID. This is not an easy thing to take on.
Right.
And she texted me back like the next day and said, "Wait a minute, a maggot might buy it." And I find out 2 weeks later, we've got Gina.
Yay!
So this is those for those that believe in this stuff. This is that meant to be thing.
Oh yeah.
You targeted it years earlier, and then it goes up for sale. And if you're like no, your husband's no, you're no together as a couple, and then it falls apart for Teresa, and it falls into your lap. And okay, so
And it's always when you're not ready. And it seems impossible, and there's no way. This is absurd. Let's wait, right? Like,
now that you've been doing it for 2 years, after thinking, oh, this would be my dream when you pulled up, is it your dream, or are you like, what did I get myself into?
we've had some crazy weather, evacuation. So we've had some crazy stuff, but yes, I still love it very much. Working with dogs every day is fantastic.
The humans are the problem. You can say it.
Yeah.
It's okay. We all know it. We all understand.
Well, right here, I'm the annoying mom dog. I barely have dropped him off. It's a day later. How's Hank?
God.
How's Hank? Is he okay? I want photos.
And I know you try to be as strict as you can on something that used to drive Teresa nuts, with holding people to their drop off and pickup times, because she used to tell me horror stories of people being 30 minutes late or nowhere close to the time they said they were going to show up, and then you might get multiple people showing up at once. So the humans have to be what drives you nuts.
It's gotten a lot better now. I do try to make sure with scheduled drop off and pickup that it's not at the same time. If you've ever been there, it can be a little chaotic if more than one pup is coming and going at the same time. So yeah, I appreciate timeliness.
Well, you've taken Dogwoods into the 21st century too. The online portal and everything is also very helpful and very advanced, and that can keep people a little bit in check. And you send out your preemptive notices if the dogs are due for their vaccines, which we have to give Sarge a rabies shot. So thank you for sending that. 'Cause
Yeah,
I'd forgotten.
that is so nice. And right here again, what we were guilty of in the beginning. And Gina was so, like, the way she did it was just so classy. It was almost like, okay, can we drop off at this time? Yes, but I have someone at this time. And it was kind of like, but y'all are usually 5 or 10 minutes late, right? But it was said in such a nice way. And I'm like, Gary, we're the late people. We can no longer be the late people. And I think we've stuck to that since then. But I'm like, oh my God, early or right on time? Well, not, stand back if you're early, because if you're busy, but I'm like, we can't be known as that. That's so rude.
Now, you mentioned you get to spend all day with the dogs. When I just found an article about the pros and cons of owning a dog kennel business, and the number one pro was you get to spend time with dogs all day.
Oh.
Okay. And then I got to the cons. Some people said that you might get sick of your old hobby. Because people always say, if you turn your hobby into your job, like there's somebody who loves to cook, and then you eventually decide to start a restaurant, and you're like, oh my God. So are you tired of your hobby at all yet?
No.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, you just love it.
And it's different. It's my job, but I also have my own dogs. And my dogs are still my dogs.
Yes, the horses that greet us all.
Yes.
Because they're on the other side of the fence as you pull in usually. These giant Great Danes.
And what's really cool is that the dogs that come regularly, they know the drive. They know where they're going. They're super excited when they get there. I had one dog, FYI, if you have excited dogs, roll up your windows. I had one jump out of a truck when they pulled into the driveway this week.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But it's cool when they're excited to be here and then excited to go home.
Is another layer of the fact that you love it still help that you are in the middle of heaven on earth, where Dogwoods is located in Garden Valley? It's so beautiful, and the sprawling property and all the work that you guys have done to improve the property is amazing. I can only imagine that just having that scenery for all the dogs to play on helps as well.
It is a beautiful piece of property. Absolutely beautiful.
Plus, you get to see the sense of accomplishment that Brandon's alluding to. The property looks nothing like it did when you bought it.
We've done extensive work on the property to clean things up. We've added new trails, a lot of work. And my husband, every time I say, hey, let's do this, oh, how much is that going to be? Yeah.
and is he still working his old job?
Oh, yeah, he can't quit yet. We've got other plans that we still need to do, so we think he can retire and then work at Dogwoods in about 5 years.
So not really retired, just a different job.
Right.
Yeah. So you when you say, they're excited to get there, yes. And then you say they're excited to leave, yeah, I don't know so much with our Hank, because my husband will show up. It's usually my husband dropping off and picking up, because those roads, but occasionally I'll do that. But for me anyway, because I'm a wuss. But he runs up and he's excited to see. I'm like, well, he's happy to see you here. He's like, oh yeah. He always runs up. He's so excited to see me. And then it's like, okay, thanks for stopping by. Now I'm going to run back over and continue to play. And I'm like, oh my God, he hates us.
He just loves it there so much. Which brings up the question: how do you decide? How do you determine which dogs go together? Because you got is it 18 different homes or patches? How many different spaces do you have?
We are small, so we only have 6 yards.
Okay.
So 6 cabins, 6 yards. How I decide who's going to be with who. I spend time with them first, see what their personality is going to be like. I think that Dogwoods is different in that dogs are like people. You have different energy. You don't like everybody. You want to have different play styles, different personalities. So trying to marry them up with ones that they're going to get along with. And not all dogs have to socialize to be at Dogwoods. Some just don't socialize, or mom and dad don't want them to socialize. So they don't have to, but they still get to go out on the property. They still get to go for walks.
They just don't go with a pack of dogs. It's
Correct.
just whoever they brought. Okay.
Right.
And do people assume that you're also part dog trainer? Do you get asked to like help out, like to train the dog? Because it's important. I know Teresa used to it. I think it's important for people to understand that's not necessarily what you do.
We do not do training. Do I try to make sure they sit when they get their food and, don't jump on me, things like that? Yes. But I'm not a dog trainer, no.
We should. Now that you mentioned the food, we should step back for people that don't have any idea. They've never, because I've been going there for 15 years. You mentioned food. So a lot of people have very specific food needs, and do people have to bring their own food?
Yes.
Okay. And what if they have I need to add a tablespoon of pumpkin every meal. They've got all these prescriptions, and here, put a can of chicken in there. Will you accommodate all that, or do you want them pre-made, or how does that work?
You can bring me the food however you like. Accommodate every diet. I have a refrigerator, a freezer, a microwave, a can opener. I have dogs that are on raw diets and ones that are just dry kibble type of food, so runs the gamut.
People that follow you on Instagram already know the answer to this question. What about dogs with disabilities? Can you handle them?
Yes, as long as they can navigate. I'm usually able to accommodate. We've had blind dogs, deaf dogs, dogs on wheels.
Oh, sweet.
Do you have?
gosh.
Do you do daycare? Like most people think of Dogwoods as like the way we use it. Most of us use it. You get them for a few nights or a weekend or a week when we're on vacation. But what if somebody just needs you to take care of them during the day? They'll bring them up and they'll come back at dinner time and get them.
Yep, daycare is not a problem. Usually daycare are local because typically most of our clients are Sacramento, Roseville. They're not going to drive for the day, but some do come as far as Colfax just for the day.
Jeez.
Yeah, this is so weird. I'm like seeing Gina. It feels like I'm seeing her in the wild because I've never seen her with her hair down and styled, right? Or like it's usually like in a hat or whatever out of Dogwoods. I'm like, this is a new. They said Gina's coming. I'm like, you're beautiful both ways, but at first I was like, whoa, I've never seen you outside of Dogwoods without a hat.
I'm clean. I'm not full of dog
Right,
hair
exactly.
and drool and mud. And, yeah.
So this brings up the obvious question: who's taking care of the dogs right now?
My husband's at the house.
How now? One of the things on the con list of so you want to own a dog kennel business was that you won't have very much free time. It's just you usually? Or how does that work?
7 days a week. This is what I do. We do close for vacation 2 times a year for 2 weeks each. So that's my time. But other than that, it is a 7-day a week, all day job.
And the only people that will deal with the dogs are you, and to a much lesser degree, your husband?
Occasionally, my husband helps. When my kids come visit, they help out here and there. But yeah, it's primarily just me.
So it's just you don't have anybody to pick up the poo.
Just me.
That's you?
Just me.
Oh my
Amazing.
goodness.
Wow.
How much poo does that place
Yeah,
produce?
honestly.
And do you do anything? Do you recycle it or compost it, or does it just go in the dumper?
Goes in the trash.
That's like having a lot of horses. I mean, honestly.
Well, when you're at capacity, what's the most dogs you've had at one time through all 6 of the areas?
Our capacity is 15.
That's it. That you won't even consider a 16th, or maybe you can.
Our capacity is 15.
See, that's
I
how
love
she
it.
is.
Hey, she's learned. She's got it right.
Yeah.
This is what works. This is what I know I can do. Yeah.
Just curious. I know your capacity at 16, but do you accept other
15.
animals? 15, sorry.
15.
Do you accept other animals? If someone comes in with a ferret or a hamster and their dog and is like, I need you to keep this on your desk and feed it, is that possibility?
No,
No. Okay.
just dogs.
Do you have any breed restrictions?
No.
Have you ever had to kick out a patient, or not a patient, but a client? Have you ever had to say, we can't accommodate your dog?
Yes, it is rare, but yes, it has happened.
So how would you? So somebody who, let's say somebody like Dawn, who didn't have my seal of approval and didn't have a relationship with the show and all that, who's scared to death, right? And had no history, and they're like, oh man, we can never go on vacation. We have no one to take care of our dog. Or they're like, well, at least when we take him to the vet, I mean, he sits in a box 23 hours a day, but at least I know he's safe. How can you make somebody feel good about dropping their dogs, their precious fur babies, off with you in the middle of the woods with all these other dogs there? How can you assure them they're safe?
Usually they come for a meet and greet, which is like 30-60-minute visit. Come check things out. I get to meet them, meet their pup. They get to meet me, see what Dogwoods is all about, run through what we do. And then when they come drop them off for boarding, there are sometimes some tears. It's like dropping them off at kindergarten for the first time. But then, they'll check in, or I'll check in with them. And I had somebody drop off yesterday to a bad experience somewhere else, and the dog did great. It's a 6-month-old puppy lab, and he's just adorable. And so it is nerve-wracking. I understand the first time. But once they get the first time down, they usually come back.
Terry wrote in with a question because you mentioned that you do go on vacation. So what happens to Dogwoods while you're on vacation, since it's just you and your husband?
We close.
And you send out a notification to everybody that's been there before that's supposed to be coming up, and these dates won't be available, or?
If you go online to book a reservation, those dates will be blacked out, so you can't book for those dates.
So how far ahead do you have to? Or is it the same? Is it the same weeks every year? So you've just, that's how you make it easy.
Yeah.
If every year, so if you're a regular client of Dogwoods, Gina's not going to be there. It's a Dogwoods, we wanted to go to Vegas. Fine. For example. For
example. In the future, that will likely change. When my son comes to work at Dogwoods when he gets out of the Army here later this year.
Now, when we had that first lunch, and you mentioned her earlier, you also have a daughter who was at the time was involved. I think she was helping you with social media or something. Is she still involved on a regular basis with Dogwoods?
She does all the social media. I don't do any of the social media.
But she's not local.
No.
That's so cool.
That
you don't do
is.
any of it?
No.
Does she tell you, or do you just find out by accident what's being posted or what's happening?
We communicate, but then sometimes she just says, she just does stuff, then I see it later. But usually we communicate.
I don't even know if you'd have time to do it.
No.
Right? Exactly.
No.
That's great.
We got an email from Amber, rad@radradio.com, says, does Gina take elderly dogs that need to sleep with a person at night?
Oh.
I've actually had some people ask if they could sleep in my bed, and that's a no.
Oh, God.
No, they don't sleep in my house or in my bed.
Oh, gosh, right. Yeah, no.
What about a dog that needs ramps because they can't jump anymore?
Yeah, we have ramps.
This is from Tanya. Says, would you be able to board dogs that have social issues with other dogs and some people? I have 2 dogs, one a 9-month-old puppy, the other a 5-year-old dog that is anxious and slightly fearful. But once he's comfortable, he's just as much a puppy as his brother. The puppy's still learning boundaries, etc.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
That's not even...
Wow.
That's not a problem at all.
I love that answer. Her face is like, yeah, no big deal.
Yeah,
like, what a silly question. No, no, that's not what you're saying.
So you mentioned it's 7 days a week. What time do you get up in the morning?
5.
What about dogs that people that want their dogs fed at a very specific time? I mean, can you cater to all of that?
Yes. I just set a timer on my phone.
And is daily exercise guaranteed? Other than, they're in their pens, but is the walk on the property and all that?
As long as the property is safe. Like when we had some of these really bad storms and we had some damage out on the property, then we don't go out if it's not going to be safe. But yes.
Gina's told us that Hank makes it quite clear they will hear him barking, and it's breakfast time because he's very early. He is so scheduled, that dog. And they're like, yep, that's Hank.
He knows what time we eat.
Yep. Yes, he does. Mm-hmm. I mean, that dog is so scheduled.
And speaking of all of this, kind of wrapping it all together here, you mentioned, we've thought about where the property is. There's the weather concerns. You're in the middle of Fire Central, but you actually have put together a plan to keep the dog, because there's another one. What happens if there's a fire and you're in the fire? And you've had to think about this. So what's the plan if I'm in Hawaii and there's a fire and you have to evacuate?
So we kind of have several plans depending upon how much time we have to leave. First, we have an evacuation trailer that has kennels secured inside.
Wow.
5-gallon water jugs, leashes, bowls. So if we have to evacuate, or we think we might need to, we bring the trailer right into Dogwoods, hooked to the truck. When we were evacuated in September, we had time because the mosquito fire had been burning for a couple days, and we thought we might have to evacuate, so we were prepared. We had all the dogs picked up when we had our warning given to us by their emergency contacts. So by the time we got our mandatory evacuation, everybody was already gone. If we don't have that kind of time, we take them with us and we contact you or your emergency contact and meet somewhere to pick them up.
Wow.
What happens in the rare instance? Because I do know it's rare that there's an instance where medical treatment is needed, and the owners are nowhere to be found. What do you do?
That happened this week, so I took them to the vet.
You're the owner. You just take them.
Yeah, I treat them like I would treat my own dogs. If I feel that my dog needed to go to the vet, I would use the same judgment for yours.
And speaking of your dogs,
Wow.
one last question. Terry wants to know, okay, so when you go on vacation, Dogwoods is closed for now. Who watches your dogs?
My daughter does, so we drive them down to Southern California, and they go stay at her house.
You drive them? Do you have a trailer to put those Great
I
Danes
know,
in?
right? Yeah, a horse trailer.
Right, going down the road, you see their big heads sticking out.
That's why they have a horse trailer already. It was
Yeah.
originally for their dogs. Now it's for evacuation.
How do you get those dogs? And you say Southern California? So like a 6-7 hour drive with those things. What are you taking them? I want to know.
But we just got a third Dane, so when we got our
That's right. Oh my god.
we got our third Dane in February, right before we were going on vacation. So we had to get a camper shell for the truck so that we could have all 3 Danes.
All right, I know I said that was the last one, but
That's
last because this is a
great.
good question. How young can puppies be? Carly has a chocolate lab who will be 4 months in July. Is she too young?
No, usually once they hit 4 months, they've had all of their vaccines. So it's not an age requirement; it's a vaccine requirement. So once they get all their vaccines, they're good to go.
All right, and it's dogwoodsresort.com. Anything you wanted to add, by the way, Gina?
I know my daughter would kill me if I didn't mention our Dogwoods Coma photo contest
Yes.
on Instagram right now. So if you've been to Dogwoods and you have a picture of your dog in a Dogwoods coma, tag us on Instagram and
Hashtag Dogwoods Coma.
Dogwoods Coma.
See, this is why daughter handles social media.
Yes. And then she will post it on our Instagram page. And more likes you get, you can win up to a 5-night stay.
When are you announcing the winners of that?
June 1st.
Oh, I thought you would have to call your daughter. All right.
Is it at Dogwoods Resort?
Yes.
The Insta? Okay.
Duh.
Well, hey, I'm sure her daughter's like, give the address or whatever it's called.
I'm sure.
Called an
I'm
address?
going to go on a limb and say her daughter's under 40, and she's like, no, everybody knows that.
Oh, really?
Thank
Oh,
you,
my
Gina
bad.
from Dogwoods
Hashtag.
Resort, for joining us.